Hello, hi, I'm Shamika Ravi, and I'm here to present to you some of the more recent research that we have just completed. So, the research is called Politics in Action, and it is basically a longitudinal study, meaning it's a time series studies of how the country has fared over 15 years period. Well, first of all, unlike survey data or data that is put together by talking to people, this is really daytime satellite data. This is also an improvement on the night lights data which we have been using over the last 10-15 years, largely on account of the fact that now with greater energy transition, LED becoming very popular, the luminosity is not very accurate. So, we are all moving towards daytime satellite imagery data. As you can see, this is a picture of the city of Kolkata as of 4 years back. And now what the GHSL, which is called the Global Human Settlement Layer, data that has been put together by the European Commission, has been made available last year. And what they do is they capture the satellite image of the whole world at an extremely high resolution of including 10 into 10 meter. So, this is extremely high. And what we analyze in this paper is basically the built up surface area, including the volume and the height of everything that is built up. So, this includes roads, all forms of infrastructure, this includes buildings, this includes residential, non-residential. So, everything that is built up that a satellite can picture during the daytime. So, this is as best data as it can get in terms of objective changes within a surface over time. The other novelty in the study is that we are combining this and what is happening over time with the election commission data. So, this is one of our main results. It basically looks at what is the annualized growth rate of built up area or overall construction, or it's a very good metric of what is happening to economic activity at the ground level. We will see what has happened over time under the different administrations. Now, this is a distribution which is telling you that the growth rates of course have been distributed from 0 to we have had constituencies in the country that have grown at around 10% annualized. But this entire distribution looks like this over time, and you can see that under the NDA epoch, which is from 2015 to 20, you have had 3.3%, which is the average, it's the mean growth across parliamentary constituencies, while 5 years before that, the average growth over the parliamentary constituencies were around 2.8%. Now, quite remarkably, the gap between this is around 18%. And that is what this study captures, that you have a wide distribution. Each dot here is a parliamentary constituency. And you can see that while it varies from a little over 0% to above 10% annualized, the averages are quite remarkably and very significantly higher under the NDA one, which is under Prime Minister Modi. Beyond, of course, the averages, you also want to understand where and which constituencies across the country have grown the most. So, the average is 18%, but this is really a distribution. And this gives you a sense of how from 2010 to 15, the red spots are the ones that have grown at above 5% annualized. So, this is incredible growth. And you can see that what has happened from 15 to 20 onwards, that red has really gotten spread all across the country. It has also mostly happened in some of the most backward or the underdeveloped parts of the country. And that is what is remarkable about this average of 18%, that the fastest growth have happened in some of the least developed parts of the country. This is really representing the same data, except it's in one map, and it tells you what is the difference in the growth rate from 10-15 and 15-20. The green spots are places which have had the highest increase in growth over time. Again, once again, you will see these are mostly focused in the least developed parts of the country. So, now what about inequality? So, while I have spoken to you and I have shown you results for average growth rates across parliamentary constituencies. A great concern in large democracies such as ours is also to see what is happening, how is it distributed, meaning what is happening to the inherent inequality across the districts or across the parliamentary constituencies in this case. Now, this particular analysis or this result is telling you that how is growth rate distributed over constituencies by virtue of how developed they are. These are the least developed. Okay, so these are the least developed, and we are defining developed as what percentage of the constituency has some built up area. So these have less than 1.6%, while these have built up area above 35%. So these are mostly your urban centers. If you look at the performance of the two administrations over the last 10 years, then you will notice that under the NDA from 2015 onwards, your highest construction or the highest amount of built up area growth that have happened have been in the least developed parts of the country. Those constituencies which have been relatively underdeveloped, which are remote in nature, which are rural in nature, they have seen the highest increase of above 6.5% annualized growth in terms of constructed area. This is not a surprising result if we begin to think of aspiration districts program or the focus over last several budgets in terms of how much is being pushed in the form of capital expenditure for infrastructure growth in some of the most remote and far-flung areas of the country. If you compare that now with the previous 5 years, which is under the UPA 2 regime, then you will notice that while even there relatively more construction happened in the underdeveloped parts, but the gap, if you look at what happened under NDA, it is significantly higher. So we can say that under the NDA from 2015 to 20, there has been convergence across districts, or there has been a reduction in inequality as far as construction or built up surfaces are concerned, which is a very good proxy for economic activity. It's a very good proxy for economic growth by itself. Next, we move the focus away from parliamentary constituencies, which is the politics in action that we are studying under the analysis, and we begin to focus a little bit on the districts themselves. Now, notice in India, districts and parliamentary constituencies don't coincide entirely. And while parliamentary constituencies is a way of looking at performance of a local politician, a local leader, an elected representative, we also are very interested in seeing how does it look at the administrative level, which is at the district level. Here again, we compare the NDA under Prime Minister Modi. If you look at 2015 to 20 epoch, we compare it with 2010 to 2015 under the UPA 2, and we also go back further and we look at what happened under UPA 1. And here you will notice that while the difference between UPA 1 and UPA 2 is actually not that high, you will notice that under NDA, under Prime Minister Modi, you are seeing significantly higher growth. So this is 21% higher than what you saw under UPA 2. Now, again, the distributions are vast, which means we also have districts that have actually grown at above 10% annualized growth from 2015 to 20, which is remarkable growth. Now, India is a very large country, and we have to move not just beyond national level averages to even district level. Now, remember, on an average, a district in India has 2 million people. So that is a very large district. It's a very large entity. We want to go further granular, and we begin to therefore look at the sub-districts within the country, because we are really interested in seeing on the ground what is the distribution of economic growth in the country. Here, once again, we compare the growth rates under NDA 1, UPA 2 and UPA 1. Quite remarkably, the results are very consistent. So what you see at the parliamentary constituency looks similar to what you see under the district and becomes even stronger if you compare it with the sub-district level. Now, at the sub-district level, quite remarkably, what you will notice is under the NDA, at a sub-district level, we have seen 31% greater growth if you compare it with UPA 1. And that was a period of high growth, but clearly that growth wasn't distributed across very large number of areas, and on an average it was still relatively low. If you compare NDA with the UPA 2 time, then again you will notice that you have a 21% difference. So, at the granular level, at the sub-district level, we have witnessed far higher growth from the year 2015 onwards. What about the inequality results? Meaning, how is this growth distributed across the country? Again, what you will notice is similar results to what we saw under the parliamentary constituencies. That under the NDA, under Prime Minister Modi, what you have noticed, it's almost a 7% higher growth in the most remote or the least developed parts of the country. These are your least developed parts, which have less than 3% constructed area within a neighborhood. So, these are the least developed parts of the country. These are the most developed parts, which have more than 30%. And what do you notice across the 3 epochs or the time periods? You will notice much higher reduction in inequality, because a lot of this construction or a lot of economic activity has been focused on the least developed parts of the country. So, again, what we have noticed in the last 5 years have been greater convergence across different sub-districts and districts in the country. Our last result is about seeing inequality and how is it distributed, how is economic progress or growth distributed at the local level. Here you will notice that the standard errors, if you notice the width of each of these, the standard errors are much narrower than what we found under the districts and the parliamentary constituencies, and that is because we have many sub-districts. So, in terms of observations, units of observation, these are very large numbers, and therefore the standard errors become very small, or you are very precisely estimating what has happened over time. And again, you will notice that you are witnessing 7% higher growth at local level under NDA, under Prime Minister Modi, than what you noticed under both regimes of the UPA, UPA 2 and UPA 1. In essence, this paper is meant to show, using objective data, daytime satellite data, data which is irrefutable in terms of the way it is calculated and the way it is put together, and how it maps real-time changes on the ground within such a large country such as ours. Now, beyond the quality of the data, I think the novelty here is combining or marrying data sets of different sources. So, we combine daytime satellite data, extremely high resolution, with parliamentary constituency data, which is from the Election Commission. We look at district level and sub-district level data, and we have put them together to study extremely localized growth over time, and this is spanning about 15 years. So, we are in a as objective as possible, very rigorous. We are able to estimate changes that have happened under the different regimes, and clearly we can conclude that the country has witnessed tremendous growth at highly localized level under the NDA compared to both the regimes from 2005 to 10 and 10 to 15 onwards under both regimes of the UPA. So, that is the conclusion of this study. Thank you very much.